Good afternoon. Good afternoon. How you guys doing? It's your Coach Renz, and I was awakened this morning to this rant by a young lady named Candice Owens, and we're going to discuss this for a bit. I went to listen to her 17 minutes, 18 minutes of ranting concerning George Floyd, to which I found her rant to be somewhat despicable, self-aggrandizing, self-centeredness. I found her to be taking advantage of an opportunity to put herself out there by saying something that you relatively have not heard from most other people. What's up? How you doing, Yameta? So we're going to talk about this, and I listened to it, and I took notes. I actually took notes of her points, because I don't like to repeat what somebody said and be actually wrong in what they were saying. You know, I want to make sure I got what they said right. Dante, how you doing? Just did a little sharing real quick. I'm not going to belabor here too long. You know, I will also always, anytime I get on here, I want to thank everybody who supports my channels on Facebook, your Facebook over here, on YouTube as well. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel. I greatly appreciate it. Everybody who supports the channel through Patreon, who shops at Uncle Renz Popcorn, I appreciate everybody, and all my coaching clients, I appreciate you guys as well. So let's get right into it, because Candice Owens made this very long, well, it wasn't very long, but a 17, 18-minute rant concerning George Floyd. And I'm going to definitely want to answer any questions anybody has to say. Stormy said George Floyd was a POS criminal. Asked the pregnant lady that he held at gunpoint while her held a gun on her stomach while they robbed her. And Stormy, I hope you stay on here. I hope you really stay on here, because here's the thing. I believe, just like, and I'm a Falcons fan, so of course I don't like Drew Brees already, but just like Drew Brees, I believe, has no idea of what this is all about. I don't think Candace has an idea of what this is all about, nor do I think you have an idea of what this is all about. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say I disagree with everything that Candace said. I don't disagree with everything she said. Some of the things she said I actually agree with. But I'm going to go ahead right off the rip. How you doing, Ursula? And for you, Stormy, just in case you don't stay, and say this. Regardless of what a person has done, that person deserves their time in court. No one deserves to die by being choked out, regardless of what they have done, until they have been in a position to go through the court proceedings. We have seen church shooters, mosque shooters, get apprehended and brought into court, and they were violent criminals. This man supposedly passed a counterfeit bill, which only holds a fine of $1,000 to $3,000 in Minneapolis and up to 3 years in jail. The point that she was making concerning him being a martyr, let me go ahead and say this right now. Black people do not uphold George Floyd as a martyr. I don't think people understand where the hell the idea of the term martyr comes from, the fact that you would use it in such a way, that she used it in such a way. First of all, let's look at where does the word martyr come from? The word martyr comes from Justin Martyr. Justin Martyr was this Christian, who died for the sake of Christendom. Now, he murdered a bunch of people. Justin Martyr did. Killed a whole bunch of people in the name of Christianity. But we use the term martyr because the powers that be of the day coined it that way. Dr. King died for his cause. He wasn't a perfect human being, but he died for his cause. We call him a martyr. Malcolm died for his cause. We call him a martyr. Huey died for his cause. we call him a martyr. They all were flawed people. George Floyd was not championing a cause that he died for. Therefore, he is not considered a martyr, nor is anyone in the black community saying he is a martyr. What we are saying is that this man was maliciously murdered on the street, and it was uncalled for, unnecessary. It was a crime. And we are tired of seeing police brutality within the neighborhoods. That was the reason. That's the reason people are angry. It's not because George Floyd was going around the country giving speeches and trying to bring people together or change the racist systems that black people find themselves oppressed under. It's not that he was that person, and we weren't looking for that. And that's not why people are angry. He is merely, and I hate to say merely in that way, but he is merely one of many who have died at the hands of the police unjustly. And we have seen police officers get acquitted time and time and time and time and time again, and that is why this is an uproar. Look, if it was just about, if it had to be somebody who was a good-natured black person and followed the system in lockstep, then I guess you would be satisfied. But to call the man a piece of shit, as you did, Stormy, because I'm imagining you feel some kind of way about that, and I can understand that if a man held a gunpoint, held someone I knew, or just the fact that they held a pregnant woman at gunpoint and robbed, I would take issue with that person as well, and I think that person would deserve to go to jail, to which he did go to jail and serve time for that. But we'll get down to that based on the flow of Candice Owens' little rant. Now, Candace seemed to be a book-wise, intelligent young lady. You know, she suffered some racism at the age of 17. The NAACP helped her and filed that lawsuit, won her family $37,000+. She went on to the University of Rhode Island, dropped out her junior year, started some websites, some blogs, did some apprenticeships, moved up in some companies. She was very much against Trump until she tried to do a website that was going to out people who committed cyber terrorism towards other people, or giving out their information, until people gave out all her information. Then all of a sudden she flipped from being someone who was an anti-Trump to a black conservative who now supports Trump and is leading a movement that she's trying to create where black people join the conservative party, the Republican Party, and called Blexit. And she is well within her right to flip-flop parties and to try to build her own movements and whatever, all she wants to. But the problem here is that she's taking this time to not talk about the issue and actually denigrate and make it into a myth of what black people go through on a consistent basis. Now, she's 31 years old. I'm 48. I've been through those situations where the police officer comes up and they just pull you over and ask you all kind of questions. They ain't got nothing to do with why they pull you over. You walking down the street and asking you, where you going? Why are you going there? Where do you live? Who are you? Were you involved in this? We're looking for somebody who you fit the description. See, I've experienced that. Maybe she hasn't. Maybe she hasn't. I've had to work under a racist staff sergeant for 3 years of my life and listen to this man tell racist jokes and then give me excess duties, tell the black people in the unit, none of you will get promoted under me. I've had to deal with that kind of racism, but maybe she hasn't, and that's why she don't get it. Maybe that's why she don't get it. I've dealt with situations when I moved into a neighborhood and the people in the neighborhood, all of a sudden they want to start selling their property because they say, oh, I know the property value is about to go down. Maybe she's never experienced having people do that. You know, maybe she's never experienced having to flee from the KKK in the middle of nowhere, Brunswick. Actually, it was I can't remember the name of the goddamn little country town in North Carolina. Maybe she's never experienced that, and that's why she don't get it. You know, and I don't know what it is. I don't know what. But let's look at some of the things that she's about, that she said in this rant, because just as she tore this man down, If I went through her history, there's some things I can tear her down about, but I'm not in the, that's not what we're here for. We're here to just look at what she said and see what's factual, what's true, and what's not. Now, she says she doesn't support George Floyd as a martyr, nor does anyone else. We're not supporting him as a martyr. We're not supporting him at all. We're supporting the fact that black people are treated unfairly by police. That too often police officers get off when they kill a black person. And for all the white people that are on my pages and on my channels, here's the thing. You can throw up numbers all day that more white people get killed by police officers. And we're going to tackle that later on. This ain't about that. If you have a problem with that, white people, then go and have your problem with it. But do not tell us not to have a problem with it. Just think about that. Don't tell us not to have a problem with it just because you don't have a problem with it. You know, if you don't mind getting robbed, don't get mad at somebody else because they mind. If you don't mind being raped, don't get mad at somebody else because they mind being raped. If you don't mind police brutality in the white community, don't get upset because we mind police brutality in the black community. We got a problem with it. Just because you don't, that's you. Do you and keep it moving. So she doesn't look at him as a martyr, but none of us do. He's not a martyr. We're not looking at his past. We're just looking at what happened to the man. That's what we care about. What happened to the man? He was a human being. He was a human being who was treated like an animal. That's what we're looking at here. She said that she's read all these books, and look, girl, I have read so many books it ain't even funny. So many books ain't funny. Just because you read a book doesn't mean that your opinion or your thoughts are greater than someone else's. Live some life first. Live some life. Because you are showing that you can be very well educated, but not be very smart. You can be very well read, but not have a consciousness about you. You can speak well, but still spill out foolishness. So your education, the books you've read, it really doesn't matter. Because I've read a ton of books, but at the end of the day, does the books matter? No. She says that, and this is the thing. She quoted a guy, an author, Shelby Steele. And Shelby Steele says that black people are the only race who caters to the bottom denominator of our community. The fact that we will go out and protest and march about George Floyd and post all these people names and all the kind of stuff, that we'll try to get criminals off and all these sorts of things, that we're the only ones who do it. That right there shows that you have a disconnection as to what this is all about. That you have actually no idea. You and Mr. Shelby Steele, who I have no idea who this person is, that y'all do not have a connection and to understand what this is all about. Drew Brees not getting it, we really don't care. How could he get it? He is not a black man who has suffered under this sort of thing. You not getting it, I initially would say you don't care, that you should. But not all black people get it, because not all black people have lived amongst the black community or have dealt with what black people deal with. I don't know your life travel, so I don't know. I don't know. You seem like you're marrying some dude from England, so maybe a white guy from England. Maybe that's why you don't get it, right? Sounds like she's running from her blackness. I can't say she's running from something because I don't think she's had it, to be honest. I think she had one issue of racism, and then she has just been floating in a lily world the rest of her life, from what I can tell. Now, I could be completely wrong. George Floyd was the straw that broke the camel's back. Exactly. See, what she doesn't understand is that this is all a powder keg, just building up pressure, and eventually the dam breaks, and that's what the dam broke. Okay, the dam broke. The crack got big enough, and the dam broke. All right, but she talks about how other races don't demand justice, that they don't demand people like Meek Mills, free Meek Mills. Like, I could care less who Meek Mills is or was, or I don't even know what the whole free Meek Mills things was about. Sure, there's some stupidity. We have this thing about celebrities. All people do. All people follow their celebrities and think their celebrities are great. But what you don't understand, and I'm going to say this throughout this entire thing, is that black people are just as this Shelby Steele person can identify, that black people do something a little bit different, we are also in a unique position that no other race in America can claim. No other race in America can claim 400 plus years of slavery, and then Jim Crow laws and other laws, black laws, that keep you from being able to express yourself and be a human being, to be able to excel at your highest level. She says things in other articles that black people from the end of the Civil War to the first 100 years were the most productive that we have ever been, but she don't understand that the only reason that there was a black it's not the only reason, but one of the main reasons there was a black Wall Street is because the black people had no choice. They could not shop somewhere else. They couldn't do it. They couldn't. Your great grandparents, Miss Owens, couldn't shop somewhere else. Couldn't go to this restaurant or that restaurant, so they had to support the black restaurants in their community because they weren't allowed to go to the white restaurant. So of course a black Wall Street was built after Reconstruction and that sort of thing was going on. But integration changed a lot of those things, and the black community dispersed. It dispersed. This is why I've always said integration did more damage to the black community than it helped. It dispersed. This is why Dr. King in 1967 said that his dream has become a nightmare, because we dispersed. But you don't understand how that dispersing our communities created a situation where we stayed at the bottom class, that there were things in place to keep us from growth, keep us from being great, that when you weren't allowed to go into certain colleges and education, then you couldn't get the degrees, you couldn't get the placement, you couldn't get the job. Even you don't understand what it's like in 1998 as a black man with an IT degree. They see your resume, they bring you in for the resume, but as soon as they see your black face, they are shocked, because how can a black man have a Microsoft certified trainer, be a Microsoft certified systems engineer, have a degree in computer science, have a Cisco certification, have a Network Plus A Plus and Security Plus certification? How can this black man have all of this and have the experience that he has? Nope, not giving you the job. There's an Indian dude over there. He's probably better. There's a white guy over there. He's probably better. See, you don't understand that kind of thing going on. So for you, it's like, oh, everybody can just go out there and get it done. No. So when you say we cater to the lowest denominator, we're not catering to a denominator. We are catering to the fact that we, no matter what education level you have, no matter what your spirituality is, when a police pulls you over, they see a black man. They see a threat. That's what they see. And not all situations end in death. I saw a video today where a young black man was pulled over and he had his hands on his head, and they got like 10 guns on this young man. And they still scream, put your hands up, his hand is on his head. Put your hands up, where the hell, how much up there are they supposed to be? And he's terrified. Another video of a 90-year-old black woman trying to tell the police to leave her grandson alone. He's laying on the ground facing the dirt, screaming, please don't shoot me, because he ran a traffic sign. And they got their guns out. You don't understand. Those are the things that we're tired of. That New York had stop and frisk, where they just pull a black person to the side and I can frisk you anytime I want. I can violate you anytime I want. And eventually that system creates the very criminals that they're supposed to be trying to stop. You don't understand that, young lady. And that's why you think that we cater to the lowest denominator. It's not about George Floyd. It's about the system that continues to harass and brutalize black people, that you later on in your thing called a myth. A myth. And that this problem is systemic, and it starts economically, it goes spiritually, and then just in the treatment of black people in everyday life. You don't understand that in the South, when you glorify the Confederacy, then you glorify the generals of it when you call them great patriots, that all you're doing is creating the next generation of racist white people who are going to think that the fight for states' rights to own slaves was correct. You don't understand that. All you understand is you want to be a conservative because some liberals attacked you and put your personal information out, and now you are a Trump supporter where you used to be a person who went against Trump. You flip-flop. And you're well within your right to change your mind, young lady. But the idea that you would categorize black people as we are martyring and glorifying the worst of us, and we would call the best of us coons. Now, you use the phrase Uncle Tom, but evidently you haven't seen my video about Uncle Tom. You can call me Uncle Tom all day because you don't understand who Uncle Tom was. Uncle Tom was the second personality of Mr. Henson. Sambo was the other. Now, you call me Sambo, that's the problem. Sambo was the one who would turn in the slaves to slave master and tell on the slave. Uncle Tom is the one who tried to free the slaves. So get your statements right, get your understanding right. Evidently, you never read the book. Maybe you should go read the book since you've read so many books, young lady. Maybe you should. Now, I don't want to keep you guys here all day. But George Floyd, what is another thing she said? She did say that she hoped that justice is served. She does think that the police officers should have justice served to them and that the family should get justice. And you are absolutely correct. You do. We do. Remember the Tulsa massacre was 99 years ago. Jesse Peterson, a black conservative, says blacks always want to play the victim. You should talk to that guy. And we're going to talk about, she made the statement that we always want to play the victim, and that's at the end. I really want to save that for the end. And the massacre that massacre happening, and here's the thing, she won't say anything about it, like things like that. No, can't say nothing about that. Got to leave that alone. So, but let's keep going. She said that George Floyd was not an amazing person. You're absolutely right. He wasn't amazing in the effect of how you would categorize an amazing person, right? But he was an amazing person in the fact that he was a person, period. That he was a person, period. And he deserved the ability to breathe, right? So, yeah, she probably doesn't know that Josiah Henson was an actual person. She probably thinks it's a fictional tale. But he may not have been amazing to your standard. But he was amazing in the fact that he had a troubled life. And for the last 5 years, he stayed out of jail, he stayed out of prison. For the last 5 years, he moved to change his surroundings. See, Miss Owens, here's something you may not understand. So let me help educate you a little bit. 25% of who you are is based on your genetics. 75% is based on your environment. According to George Floyd's family and friends, he moved to get out of an environment that kept perpetuating the exact same cycle that he was stuck in. Just as many people that I've coached have moved to another city because they want to change who they are. Now, he moved to another city, and of course, just moving is not always enough. And when he moved to another city, yes, he got caught up still with the using of drugs, but he had stayed out of jail for 5 years. He was doing videos, which is what he decided to do, about young men stop killing each other, stop shooting each other, stop all the gang violence. So he may not be amazing to you for your standard of someone who grows up, never gets in trouble, or maybe gets in trouble once or twice, but then changes their life. But sometimes it takes people going through a certain amount of pain before they can actually change their life. Maybe just going to jail for 3 months and 5 months wasn't enough pain for George to change his life, but going to jail for 4 or 5 years changed his life. Maybe he saw dreams of that gun that he held to that pregnant woman, and it created nightmares, and it changed his life. Whatever happened, he was doing something to try to make a change, but you can't respect that because you said if a person does it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, then they're a scumbag and they don't deserve another chance. Which, I wonder what religion you are, because I don't think there's a religion on the planet that says that your number of times that you're able to change your life, that there's a limit to it. I think you have until the moment breath leaves your life to change your life. That's just what I understand. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but I do believe that every religion teaches that. So I would be curious to know what form of morality do you follow, where you say a person only gets so many chances to change their life. Maybe you follow the humanistic morality, where you are judge, jury, and evidently George Chauvin, the executioner. Or no, I don't know if it's George Chauvin, whatever Chauvin's name is, the executioner. But no, to you he was an amazing person. But to me, the fact that he was still trying makes him an amazing person. Now, according to the autopsy that you talked about, you said that George Floyd was high on fentanyl. You also said he was high on methamphetamines. No, he wasn't high on methamphetamines. It was in his blood system as well as cannabis. But what you leave out in that statement, yeah, the medical examiner blamed pre-existing conditions for his death. Whereas the private exam that the family did, the private autopsy that the family did, said that he died of suffocation from the stoppage of blood in his carotid artery, from the pressure applied to his body, from a knee on the neck. So the fact that there were drugs in his system had no justification for his murder. But you would rather talk about that. You rather talk about that. Do you know how many people on Wall Street are heavy cocaine users? Do you know how many CEOs are alcoholics and heavy drug users? Their heavy drugs and alcohol is not something that is synonymous with lower income people or lower income areas, but they flourish in all economic structures and in all people. I know some of the most high functioning drug addicts in this world. Christina said, raising the average, she said. Forget the people who are struggling, toss them out. Basically is what she wants. Hey, if somebody on the lower class or somebody who's suffering or struggling is having problems, to hell with them. Only focus on those who are. Hold on, my is pausing here on Facebook. I might have to go back and restart Facebook, people. I think Facebook is trying to kick me out. It's trying to stop me from doing this. This is interesting. Okay, Facebook, I guess you're back. Nope, maybe not. I don't know. This is interesting. Give me a second, YouTube. Give me a second. All right, Facebook, are you with me? All right. Nope. Oh. let's restart the Facebook. So, I don't know. Facebook is tripping over here, but we're going to continue. I'm going to have to restart Facebook, people, so please be patient with me for a second there. All right. I guess Facebook is still working. Nope, maybe not. This is interesting, right? People often say that there's like an issue going on, that like behind the scenes they're trying to stop people from being able to speak, right? And oftentimes I don't think that those things are true until something like this happens, right? Something like this happens and it trips me out that is going on. But hold on for 1 second, YouTube. I appreciate you guys' patience. Candice Owens smears George Floyd. Just want to put the title on there. All right, so we're back. All right, Facebook is working again. I don't know what happened. So here's the thing. The examiner you are ready to accept what the medical examiner said and utilize that information to smear the man's name, to make that your storyline. You want to make what the medical examiner said your storyline, not how he died. Your focus should be on how he died, and him dying that way is inhumane. I'm always amazed at how people come out for dogs and cats and stuff, but a human, it's a whole nother story. Whole nother story. In her further attempt to smear the man's name, she talks about the 911 call, 911 call. This whole thing started because a business owner, IB said, Candice Owens is dealing with a lot of self-hatred. She's playing into the desires of her handlers. And I believe she is playing into the desires of her handlers. And I wonder who those handlers are. So she talks about the 911 call. And she said, and all of this started over the alleged usage of a counterfeit bill. Now, what's interesting is that because of his record, and I understand, if a person has done something wrong over and over and over again, you have a tendency to go ahead and put and convict that person anytime an allegation is made towards them. It's a natural thing that people do. I get it. I get it. Had this man not been trying to clean up his life and stayed out of jail for the last 5 years, I would 100% get it. If he was still in and out of jail, just got out of jail for some counterfeit stuff or whatever, I might agree with you. But it was an alleged, which you as a failed journalist, and I'm saying you are a failed journalist because your bar of excellence is based on education, and since you dropped out your junior year, failed journalism. I'm going to say that you should know better than to go ahead and say he paid for goods with a counterfeit bill. We don't see the counterfeit bill, haven't seen the counterfeit bill. The majority of other businesses interviewed in that area says that they haven't had a problem with counterfeit bills. Yet the media try to spin it as if there is a problem with counterfeit bills in that area. Even so you're saying you go ahead and accuse the man, convict the man, without even evidence that the man actually went in there with a counterfeit bill. Now let me tell you something personal about me. As the owner of Uncle Renz Popcorn, I used to do the little with a pen. You strike the pen, right? To see a counterfeit bill or not. So a lady comes into the store, right? She just left Publix. While she was at Publix, and what's interesting, I know she came from Publix. I saw her up at the money counter, and I saw her cashing her check, and she got like a bunch of bills, and she got some hundreds and stuff. I saw her do that. I walked behind her as she went into my store. So when she went to go pay with her money, and my employees stripped it with the little money marker, it showed that it was a legitimate bill that she got from Publix. This old lady, this older woman, she was probably in her 60s, 70s, closer to 70 years old. I saw them stripe it. My employees striped it like they're supposed to. Okay. Later on, when I'm going through my till, I hold the bill up to the light and I see that it's painted as a $100 bill, but the emblem, the little face you can see in it, is a $5 bill. So whomever was doing this washed this bill enough time to wash the ink out and then had it and printed over it a $100 bill so that it will fool the marker. From that day forward, I never used the markers again. We hold it to the light. I then call the police, not on the old lady, but I call the police to say, hey, this is a forgery. I saw the person who gave it to me. They came from Publix, and that's where it came from, out of Publix. So they traced where the money came from. They tried to trace it as far as they could. And then they went into investigated public security system to try to trace where the counterfeit started. So I'm saying that, Miss Owens, so that you can understand that had I not held it up to the light, I would have spent that $100 when I went to my next location, and they would have ran the little strip on and it would have been fine. But I was not purposely passing a counterfeit bill. The lady who came into my store wasn't purposely passing a counterfeit bill. And I don't know how many people were not purposely passing a counterfeit bill. It happens. Most of the time, it happens a lot. Most of the time, the originator of the counterfeit bill is usually not that person who gets caught with it. It's usually somebody else. Okay? So you are hinging things on these allegations without any proof and without even understanding whether or not that was his intent. I don't think George Floyd got a counterfeit operation going on in his backyard or in his house, apartment, wherever he lives. But that's what your claim was. Now, you also talked about how he started resisting arrest and some little baggie fell out. Okay, we can accept that the man was still using some type of drugs. That doesn't mean he deserved to be murdered in the way he was treated. He was resisting not arrest. He was resisting being a 6'5" man put into that small car because he's claustrophobic. If you read the police report, Miss Owens, you would see that, and I'm pretty sure you read it, it didn't fit your narrative, so you didn't talk about it. If you read it, you would see that he said, I'm claustrophobic, please don't put me in that car, and that's why he went stiff and fell on the ground. And he did it more than once. The man evidently had a problem with being in tight spaces. I have a problem being with tight spaces. You know that the Navy wanted me to go into their nuclear engine program, their nuclear program, but I refused to do it simply because I would be stationed on a submarine. And there was no way you was going to get me on a submarine. I refused to learn how to operate and manage nuclear engines for the Navy because of claustrophobia, a slight claustrophobia. So people can make what today I would call an irrational decision based on some type of mental trauma of that nature. Because looking back at it as a 48-year-old man going into the Navy to learn how to be a nuclear tech, that would have been a better career option for me. All right. But this man, yes, he might have been, he had some fentanyl in his system. But that claustrophobia of getting in that small car caused him to be a little bit more disruptive to those police officers. But it still did not require his death. And no one is martyring him. No one is going to put a poster of him up on their walls. We're not saying that he is to be remembered because of some great thing he did. We're saying he is remembered because of the heinous crime committed against him that we see over and over and over again in our community that you don't live in, evidently, and that you don't spend time in, evidently. Candice said that Candice Owens was never about black people. She's married to a white man. And that is a damning thing. Now, I will say this. I know some people who are married to a white person, but they are down for black people. I know people who are white married to black people, and they are down for black people. So I understand. But in this case, I'm with you. I'm with you. There's no way she was going to marry a black man because I don't think one would have her. Not a true one. I'm with you. I'm with you. So she claimed the baggie fell out of his hand. So what? That does not justify the treatment. Nor are we still putting him up on a pedestal. She said that we need to stop pretending that he lived this heroic life. Nobody said that he lived a heroic life. No one is saying that George Floyd is our hero. We are saying George Floyd died at the hands of what we see escalated in the black community all the time. We see black men being tased, black men and women being tased all the time. Hell, here in Atlanta, we saw police officers bust the window and drag these college kids out of their cars during this protest. We've seen black people, a black woman being killed in Louisville, Kentucky, just shots fired all in her house, unarmed. This is what we're talking about. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. And she kept reiterating that she has a limit. There is a limited time that a person has to get their life right. Otherwise, they're a scumbag in her name, in her world. Yeah, she read his rap sheet. Why? What does his rap sheet has to do with his murder? Nothing. Nothing at all. But she read his rap sheet. Further showing that she has no consciousness about the black community. She has no idea what goes on in the black community. He has a rap sheet. but he ain't been in jail for 5 years. He wasn't holding a handgun. He wasn't trying to kill anybody. He wasn't creating a violent act, but yet that's where you place him. That's where you place him. She called George Floyd a horrible human being because he held a gun to a pregnant woman's belly. That is a despicable act. That's a horrible act. He did that. They tried to rob the lady. All of them got caught. They all went to jail. He served his time. He's been out of jail. He hasn't been back in jail for over 5 years. I don't think that still makes him a horrible human being. The fact that he had been talking to young men about stop the gang violence. A horrible human being doesn't do that. That sounds more like somebody who's trying to change their lives. A person who leaves their hometown city where they're well known to go to another city, that sounds like somebody who's trying to change their life. But you and whatever morality you go by only gives a person so many chances. So I better count how many times I've messed up, because if I've messed up too many times, I know that Candace Owens is going to call me a horrible human being and only get so many times. So I'm glad you don't rule, because so many of us would be, heading in the wrong direction if that was the case. She calls the black community broken. We have a broken black culture. And to a certain degree, you're right. Our culture is broken. But you never take the time to identify what broke our culture. You see, when our ancestors who came from Africa to here, their culture wasn't broken before they came here. For our ancestors who were already here, their culture wasn't broken before European colonists got here. Your fiance, whose family members were slave owners, they broke the culture. They broke the black family. They separated black families. They beat men into submission. They raped men to dominate them. They beat men with whips. They beat our women. They raped our women. All of these things were done. They forced a version of, here's what's funny. They said that black people didn't have souls, but forced a religion that says that most black people are following in America nowadays. They forced that on black people, but at the same time made sure they understand slaves be good to your masters, whether good or bad. But you're wondering why we have a broken culture. Then we had the Civil War, and then after the Civil War there was Jim Crow laws, and there was laws that said that if you took a white woman across state lines you were committing a felony. But we have a broken culture, but you don't look at what broke that culture. We suffered under Jim Crow, but you wonder why the black culture is broken. We suffered in a situation where any white person can come into our neighborhoods and do whatever the hell they want to do. That a white woman can say that black boy looked at me and he's mercifully beaten, and to the point where they want the mother to close the casket, but she refuses. And then 50, 60 years later, she says she was lying. And you wonder why we have a broken culture. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we need the white man to come save us, because that is not what we're looking for. Just because you call Donald Trump the savior of Western culture, you see, I don't want Western culture, because the majority of hell that's on this planet was created by Western culture. It wasn't the Asian culture that went around colonizing and killing people. It wasn't the African culture that went around colonizing and killing people. It wasn't the Pacific Islanders culture that went around killing people. It wasn't the Native American or South American culture that went around colonizing and killing people. It was Western culture that thought it had divine manifestation to go around colonizing and killing people. I mean, think about it. They came into a land and said, planted a flag, this belongs to us. And we have a gun and you don't. You have a gun and you don't, so this belongs to us. This is the same way police officers come into the neighborhood. I pull you over. I have a gun and a badge. I can tell you whatever I want to tell you. I can do whatever I want to do to you. This is not your land. You don't own this. I can do as I choose. This is your Western culture that you say Donald Trump is the savior of, and we don't want a savior. We're not looking for someone to come and save us. All we want is an opportunity to save our own damn selves. That's it. No black person is running around saying, please, Mr. White Man, please come and save us. Save us. We need you to come in and make our lives better again. Because life was great when I was just working for you for free. And I need you to just bring it and just make it better for me. Nobody's saying that. It's not happening. Where do you see black people going around doing that? You don't. You're just making up stuff out of your own mind. You are the one who is looking at the lowest denominator of black culture and putting that on the whole of black culture. And for the few that agree with you, you say that they are the ones who are upright. You talk about Condoleezza Rice. You talk about, hell, I forgot the dude's name, who's the little surgeon guy who's now over HUD, which makes no sense to me. You're a surgeon, a doctor, why you over HUD? Somebody tell me that dude's name. Ran for president. He don't matter to me too much. That's why I don't remember his name. But yeah, our culture is broken. But it's not going to be fixed by somebody like you. Your idea of Brexit. Now, to a certain degree, I do agree with your Brexit. Because I don't think the Democratic Party has been as much of a help to the black community as people think they have. I don't think the Republican Party has either. Neither party has been a help to the black community. If you were really doing something for the black community as far as politically, you'd be starting your own party, a black party, not a party that goes over to the Republican Party, because they ain't gonna do nothing for us, just like the Democrats ain't done nothing for us. So I don't even understand what you're doing. It doesn't even make sense. All you're doing is saying, hey, instead of this group of people telling you to bend over so they can shove it up in there with no Vaseline, come over here so these people can bend you over and shove it up in there with no Vaseline. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing. So we have so many black hypocrites as they are going around criticizing blacks around these states for standing for equality and rights. Today, we witness vividly the protesters are multiracial. And they are. The protesters are multiracial. And all these people telling black people to not be angry, to go and vote. We've been voting for 50 years. 50 years of voting. What has it done for us? Are our black communities better after 50 years of putting these same people in office? These same type of people in office? Has it mattered when it's a Democratic president or a Republican president? Has it mattered to the black community? It hasn't. It has not. It just hasn't. So when I hear these politicians and these so-called entertainers and stars come out and they're like, and these advocates, oh, stop the violence and just go and vote. If you haven't registered to vote, then go sit down and don't say nothing. What the hell has voting done for us for the last 50 years? Tell me, what has voting done for the last 50 years? The black community has not grown through voting. No. The black community, where it has grown, is because black people took matters into their own hands. A black family saves their money. They build a business. They took it into their own hands. Their voting had nothing to do with that. A black family sends their kids off to college to get a better opportunity, a better start in life. Their voting had nothing to do with that. A black family saves money for 10 years to put that down payment on that house that they've been renting for 10 years. Voting had nothing to do with that. That is black people taking their economics into their own hands. That is black people taking their lives into their own hands. That is what has changed for some black communities and some black people. That's the difference. That's what's happened. When black people have decided to create their own neighborhood watches in their community, that had nothing to do with voting. When they decided to control the politicians, their local politicians in their community, that changed the black community, not voting. Ben Carson, thank you. So every time somebody comes up and talk about, oh, just go vote, go vote. If you ain't done nothing, we need to go vote. I'm not watching the George Floyd funeral because those close to me know I don't like funerals. I don't watch funerals. Unless it's a family member or a close friend, which would be a family member, I'm not going and watching a funeral. But I guarantee you, I ain't got to watch it to know that it is a political statements being made, that it is all political propaganda going on at that thing. And I guarantee you that there are people who are down there talking, saying that we got to show up at the polls. Trump has created this situation and we have got to be at the polls to get him out so that people don't have to suffer what George Floyd suffered. I guarantee you that's what's happening. And I guarantee you those people will not be back in that community ever again until the trial. They may come back for the trial. But I guarantee they won't come back. I guarantee they won't go into their respective communities and help and look to how they can build black people to get better credit, to work against the system that's keeping you down. I guarantee they won't do anything to help black people build and own the plazas and the homes in their community so that they can then control the tax dollars in their community. Then they control the police and the schools in their community. They're not talking about that. They're going to say Trump. They're going to say Democrats, Republicans, this police chief. That's all they're going to say. That's it. They ain't going to say nothing else. Someone told me not voting means you give a vote to the other party. How does a non-existent vote count? It doesn't. And what, you voting for the other head of the snake? That's all you're voting for. Two heads of a snake intertwine and come back to be the same. Same thing. My uncle said, I really couldn't believe that she was that stupid to say that specifically at this time like now. Why would she search into his background, which has nothing to do with it? He wasn't wanted for murder. Exactly. There was no reason to go into that man's background. That man's background had nothing to do with it. Peace and light, Coach Renz and everyone. Her family has no connection to this country as far as the foundation of this country. I'm not sure I understand that one. I blame the midwife that brought Candice Owens into this world. She should have terminated. Nah, I'm not going to go that far. I ain't going to say that. She don't need to be terminated, but grandmama should have set her down. Somebody should have set her down. So let me continue on with some of the things that she was saying. This is where she really started to get my goat. Now, it's crazy. All the other stuff she said made me mad. But this part, she really started to get my goat. And even in this, I came into this with the idea of keeping my composure. And I didn't want to get overly excited. But the more every time I talk about it, it just drives me more insane to contemplate what this young lady is out there saying. Because she's saying that the narrative of police brutality in the black community is a myth. The narrative is a myth. Now, I myself have experienced it. I've seen other members of my family experience it. I was in the Marine Corps and I experienced it. I've seen other people in the Marine Corps experience it. We have so much videotape. Now, it's funny. There was a white police officer on a whole nother post in Facebook of mine. He was saying that it was a myth too. That it's a myth because he's a white police officer. And I told him, you don't live in. You're not black. Of course, it's a myth to you. It's a myth to you. But why is it that all we see is white police officers mishandling black people over and over again? That's what we see. Now, sure, I'm sure that I'm not sure. I know there are some black police officers who do the same. But more times than not, we see a white police officer mishandling a black police officer. It's a condition in America that says that I'm white, you're black, I treat you differently. It's a condition. It's a mental condition. And it's a mental condition that needs to change because this country is based on race. This world is based on race. If it's not based on race, it's based on nationalism. Right? It's based on that. And because of that, we maintain separations of how we treat one another and how we view one another. So unless we can change that, it's not something that's going to change. But that should let you know, young lady, that it's not a myth. If it keeps happening over and over again, then it's not a myth. The way that something is a myth is that you cannot prove it. You cannot identify it. You cannot see it. You see, the belief in the Greek gods is considered a myth because they said that the Greek gods lived on Mount Olympus, and if you go to the top of Mount Olympus, they're not there. Myth. It's also a myth because nobody believes in it. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a myth. We have provable evidence that it happens, and we know it happens. It's nothing to believe in. It's a reality. But you would call it a myth because you state, and this is what she stated. All right, y'all. This is not me. This is what she stated. She said that she went into the whole population because she said, I know you black people, you're going to come back. Oh, yeah, and by the way, she did call us you people. Right around 10 minutes and 30 seconds in her rant, she called us you people. Now, she was saying you people who believe in this myth, you people. But I don't care how you use you people towards black people. You people is like, you might as well curse me to say that. But she said that I know you people are going to come out and talk about population, percentage of population. But let's talk about that for a second, young lady. You said that the black community represents 6%. Black people commit more than black people only represent 13% of the population, but we commit 50% of the crime, the violent crimes in America. Okay, Kurt K saying that King K, George Floyd was a Freemason. And what's that got to do with his murder? Really? What does that got to do with his murder? Y'all be killing me with some of that stuff. And I don't know how you mean that. So let me come back a little bit because I'm a little high up right now. So I apologize. But what do you mean by that? So she talks about that he's 50% of the violent crimes occur by only 13% of the population, and that there are more white people who are gunned down. That last year in 2018 there were 19 unarmed white people who were murdered, and there was only 9 unarmed black people who were murdered in 2018. And the fact that white people is just because white people outnumber black people, she said that don't matter. That doesn't matter in the numbers, but it does. If you have a higher majority, it's just like when you look at the prison situation. There are more white people in prison by number because there are more white people in the country, right? But based on percentage, there are more black people based on the number of black people. The number of black people in the country and the number of black people in prisons, there's a higher percentage. Which, when you look at white people, with the number of white people in the country and the number that's in prison, it's a lower percentage of white people in prison. So it's a disproportionate number of black people in prison based on the total population. So what you're saying is that the fact that 19 white people were killed unarmed compared to 9 black people, but black people only represent 13% of the population, there's a huge gap still there in those small numbers. But you're saying that black people commit 50% of the violent crimes in America according to 2018, when we only represent 13% of the population. And that's correct. But what you fail to understand is that economically, black people live in more high crime areas than white people live in, based on the percentage, which we know that in the lower income areas, you have more violent crimes. So therefore, black people would represent a higher percentage of the violent crimes because we live in the more disadvantaged communities percentage-wise than white people. It's logic. You want to use numbers. I'm using numbers plus logic, which equals this thing called understanding and wisdom. Maybe you need to get some of that. Maybe you need to get some of that. Because when you fail to understand the economic structure that puts black people in a lower income area where there is higher crime, of course you're going to have a disproportionate number of black people committing violent crimes. But if you also look at those numbers, you will see, because she told us that we need to worry about black on black crime. And I was going to save this for another little part down here, but I got to go ahead and say it right now. But when you look at black on black crime, and I had to make sure some other people understood this earlier today on Facebook, that when you look at the FBI statistics, that the majority, that over 3,000 white people died of violent crimes in 2018. 90% of the people who killed those white people were white people. So 90% of the murderers, of the 3,000 murders that happened in white communities, happened by another white person. Now, there were about 1,200, no, it was about 2,000, it was 2,000 black homicides in 2018, according to the FBI numbers. And 90% were done by black people. We kill people who look like us. Everybody does. White people too. White people kill people who look like them. You know why? Because white people live with white people most of the time. Black people live with black people most of the time. Asian people live with Asian people most of the time. Spanish, same thing. all of us have this situation where more of your own kind is likely to kill you than the other group. So when she says that black people need to worry about black on black crime, she says it as if white people don't kill white people. But like I just said, according to the FBI, out of the 3,000 murders of white people in 2018, 90% of them were committed by white people. Actually, it's higher than 90%, but over 90% is committed by white people. We kill people. Crimes usually happen within 5 to 10 miles of where you live. Usually within 5 miles. I said 5 to 10. It's actually 1 to 5 miles of where you live. Hence, if we all live together, then it's more likely you're going to be killed by somebody within your area. That's why those numbers are that way. So when a person who tried to change the narrative and focus on, well, if y'all concerned about this, you need to be concerned about black on black crime. Well, no. Here's the thing, young lady, Candace, that you don't get. We are concerned about black on black crime. Locally, we do concern ourselves with black on black crime. We show up about black on black crime. There are organizations that are geared towards fighting black on black crime. Just the same as there are white organizations that are concerned about crime in their neighborhood. Everybody is concerned about crime in their neighborhood, but we have an issue when those who are supposed to protect us kill us. We take issue with it. They're there to protect and serve, not to punish and judge and punish. They're not here to judge and punish. Protect and serve is what it says, not judge and punish. So yeah, we're going to have an issue when that happens. And here's the thing. To all my white people out there who have a problem when I get agitated, when they try to throw in the black on black crime issue, and we don't talk about white on white crime. As I said early in this video, if I have a problem with my house being robbed, but you don't have a problem with your house being robbed, that's on you. If I have a problem with my children being molested and you don't have a problem with your children being molested, that's on you. If I have a problem with somebody killing my children, but you don't have a problem with somebody killing your children, that's on you. Don't try to take your malaise attitude towards your issues, what's going on in your community, and put it in my community. Just because you don't care about the crime that's going in lower income white areas, don't act like I'm not supposed to care about the crime that's going on in lower income black areas. Just because you don't care that 19 unarmed white men were murdered by police officers in 2018, according to Candice statistic, Candice Owens, and I care about the 9 black men that were murdered unarmed, that's your issue, not mine. Don't tell me what to be angry about. Don't tell me what to get frustrated about. Don't tell me what I should care about. Clean up your own backyard before you come to mine. How about that? So your little numbers, Candace, don't work out. It doesn't work out because you like to exclude the history of black people in this country. Now, yeah, there are many opportunities for black people to change their lives. There are many opportunities for us to do such things, and there are many of us who are doing that. We are sending our sons and daughters to higher education. We are building businesses in our community. We are buying homes in our community. But we still have a long, long way to go. Remember, your family members just got the right to vote freely less than 50 years, well, about 50 years ago. 50, 60 years ago. Not even 50, 60 years. A little over 50 years ago. So it's not like you're going to swing the pendulum from 400 or 500 years of being treated like dogs, being treated like crap, and in 40, 50 years, 52 years, everything's supposed to be all right? Everything's supposed to be fair and square on an even keel? No. No. It doesn't work that way. Everything, since King K said it, everything is not on the level. Everything is not on the level, and we did not leave on a square when we separated ourselves from our slave masters. We did not leave on a square. Now, she said that the liberals are using this as cannon fodder. This is why I say that you're using this for your own gain. Because your whole gain is to move black people into a conservative party, to move black people over to the Republican Party. That's your whole plan. That's your whole plot. That's your whole rationale. So what you're trying to do now is to deface and defame this man, to make him seem like he's a horrible person that we are upholding as a martyr, when no one is holding him up as a martyr. We're holding him up and saying, see, this crap keeps happening, and we're tired of it. We keep being over policed and we're tired of it. That's all this is. Nobody's holding him up as a martyr. And you said that if we wanted to get upset, we should get upset with doctors, because doctors kill over 250,000 people accidentally every year. And here's the thing. There are organizations out there that are upset with doctors because of malpractice. That's why they have the whole malpractice suit. But more importantly, Candice, since you said the Me Too movement is a bunch of BS, since you say that feminism is a bunch of BS, let's talk about doctors and let's talk about black women for just a second. You see, this is something that was very important to me because my 3 kids were born from a cesarean section. One in Germany, one in Florida, one in Georgia. I was always deeply concerned when my children were being born, simply because I knew that black women were 2.5 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. 2.5 more times to die. I knew that that black women were 31% more likely to have a cesarean than white women. That during the cesarean, they were 3 times more likely to die than white women. I knew these things because black women were having cesareans at 35.4%. And I was concerned about that. And I knew that one of the reasons why this was happening was because of institutional racism. It's because the black woman is usually ignored. Now, don't get me wrong. It's not all the doctor's fault. But black women were normally ignored. They talk about the black women say, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, I'm in pain, and she would be ignored. That something don't feel right, and she would be ignored. That this type of mentality towards black women laying on a table, having their bellies cut open to pull a baby out, when their bodies have been designed to have a baby without you doing anything, without you cutting them open. And I know that there are some times when that needs to be done, but according to most health programs and health watch program organizations, the majority of those deaths could have been avoided. But doctors are so quick to do a cesarean. You know why? And let me put it in simple numbers. And this is how it averages out. For a regular natural birth, a doctor gets $10. The hospital makes $10. But for a cesarean, the hospital makes $1,000. Which one do you think the hospital pushes the most? That as soon as there's the slightest viability of a cesarean is the way to go, let's have that cesarean. Because that costs more. You get to charge the insurance more. You get to charge Medicaid, Medicare more money. That's why a cesarean happens more often. Now, I will say this to my sisters, if you are still in childbearing ages. The other reason why black women are more susceptible to death during cesarean and childbirth is because of high blood pressure, obesity, and hypertension. So we do need to do better in taking care of ourselves before you step into that arena. If you think that you're going to get pregnant in the next 2-3 months, or the next 2-3 years, I should say, get your health in order to be able to have a baby. All right? I was deeply concerned about that type of issue, especially after my first child was born in Germany, and they cut all the way through with a scalpel. When we came to America, they used lasers, and I saw them pull out so much scar tissue. So if you actually cared about your statement, Candice, about doctors, then you would know some research about how, or you would at least look into one of the biggest killers that doctors have made, and that is women doing childbirth. Women doing childbirth. And then maybe you would have saw how disproportionately black women and Latino women die during childbirth. But you didn't. You don't. Because it didn't fit your narrative. Because your whole thing is to smear this man so that you can get more people to join your conservative movement, so that you can continue to say that Donald Trump is the savior of the Western culture. And then she went into her final rants about how black people like to play this victim role, and that black people are the biggest problem within our own community. She talked about black on black crime, and she said that we like to blame white people. Now, somebody can take everything I just said and cut the parts where I talked about the history that got us to where we are right now, and say that all I'm doing is blaming white people. No, I'm not blaming white people. Far from it. But in order for us to change the situation, we have to first understand how we got here. How we got here. Now, it has been said to me many times before, and it's something that I may even consider going to do. I may consider going to get a degree in psychology just so I can have a piece of paper, because it seems like that's what people really need to see, is some piece of paper. But I was very interested in psychology in high school and sociology. And the thing about it is, if you want to help a person, you have to first understand how that person got to where they are. I can focus on the fruits of the tree all day, but if I don't focus on the root, then I am not helping the situation. The fruit will continue to bear itself. But here's the problem with our fruit, and this is what all Black Americans need to understand. I'm gonna tell it to you in a parable. I know how much you like parables. Let me tell it to you in a parable. You see, when I lived in Florida and I bought this house, the house I bought in Florida had a beautiful grapefruit tree. Love this grapefruit tree. It used to produce these big, giant grapefruits. I would come home every day and get me some grapefruit, eat them things. I used to give them as gift, bring them up to Atlanta, give them to my family, right? But then year after year, I started noticing that the harvest got lower and lower and lower. And then even though I noticed that there was a problem, I just kept taking whatever fruit it gave me, year after year after year. And then about 6 years, I noticed that the fruit provided so little, but then I looked at the root of it, and carpenter ants had been eating at the tree. What I didn't realize that 6-7 years ago when I bought the house, that carpenter ants had started eating at the root of the tree. And that's why the tree was dying. The roots of the tree was dying. Because I never tackled the root of it, by the time I realized that the fruit wasn't going to produce anymore, the only thing I could do at that point was to continue to get whatever fruit was left, and then later on uproot the tree. When in the very beginning, I could have figured out what the problem was and started there. You see, the biggest problem in Black America is not the fact that we need to blame white people, or that we need a white savior, or that we need Donald Trump and the Western culture come and save us, or anything like that. The problem in Black America is that we have bought into the idea of forget the root. You see, the Jewish people don't forget about what happened to them in Germany, which is why they have put together organizations and practices that keeps them from being in that situation again, because they realize that the true power is not in their vote, but is in their economics. Black people haven't realized that to the extent as it is a norm in our society. That is our biggest problem. Gun violence is not our biggest problem. Police brutality is not our biggest problem. Uneducation is not our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is that we don't remember where our ancestors came from. You see, in Haiti in 1804, they remember where their ancestors came from, and then they killed everybody and took their land, and they controlled their land. Now they had forgotten that they did that, and they let France extort them for money, and that's why Haiti is suffering. But most people say, "Oh no, look at their corrupt politics." If they weren't letting France extort them from the day one of their freedom, Haiti would be one of the most wealthiest countries in the world right now. But they're not, because they forgot where they came from, how they got their freedom. You see, we got our freedom by some of our ancestors participating in warfare, but for the most part, letting somebody else fight a war for us. And then we started to work within their system to try to get our freedom. We did not work in their system to keep our communities. We integrated, and that's how we lost. Now it's too late for us to separate. We're not going to separate. We're not going to get our own country. We're not getting 40 acres and a mule. Plus, stop saying 40 acres and a mule. That was promised by a Civil War general, not by the president or Congress or a judge or anybody of that nature. That was a political ploy to get the former slaves, to help them out when they came across the South. So stop saying that. It's not going to happen. You're never getting 40 acres and a mule. It's not something that the president is ever going to do. No president is going to do it. Hell, if Obama didn't do it, nobody else is going to do it. I'm just saying, right? Now, you're not going to get reparations. You can cancel that. Now, if I was the president, I would give you reparations. You know why? Because if I gave it to most Black Americans, all they're going to do is spend it and give it back to white businesses anyway. That's the mentality of Black people right now. So if we want to save ourselves, what we have to do is change the mentality. If we want to get out of this situation, we have to change mentality. Now, look here, little Candice. We are not in the victim mentality. We're not. That is not the Black people's mode of operations right now. We are in the mode of, let's just keep voting and keep hoping and praying. That's the mode of Black people. Not victim. But we are our biggest problem. I will agree with you with that, young lady. We are our biggest problem. And the fact that those who have so-called made it out, you've only made it out until a police officer pull you over and harass the hell out of you because you're Black. then you're going to realize you ain't made it nowhere. You ain't made it nowhere. Black celebrities get harassed just as well as a regular black person. Because when you get pulled over, you just black. That's it. I saw this video of a black man being harassed by the police. They were ready to harass the hell out of him until they saw that he was an FBI agent. Without his credentials, just another black man. So you were thinking that way until that point. So in all of this, and before I go, solution. Young lady, sit down. First, you need to sit down. Second, we are not victims. We are not victims. Black people, based on your religions, we run around talking about we are more than conquerors, that no weapon formed against us. We run around saying that God lives within us, that we are divine, that we are the chosen people. Regardless of all the religions, black people run around saying that they are filled with greatness. We come from kings and queens. We run around calling each other kings and queens. But we're not acting like it. We're not acting like it. You see, a king and a queen owns their domain, their kingdom and their queendom. They own and have dominion over their land. They own and have dominion over their source of income. That's what black kings and queens do. Black kings and queens raise princes and princesses who know that they are next in line to be kings and queens. That's what black kings and queens do. Stop calling yourself that until you're ready to act like it. So then in order to act like it, if you are living and paying rent right now, then you need to get your credit right and you need to save up a down payment. Now, if you're a veteran, you don't need a down payment. But for most other people who are not, you need a down payment. That down payment going to be 3.5% of whatever you're going to get. An FHA loan, as long as your credit score is over 580, you're going to need 580 on your credit score. You're going to need 3.5% down to buy your home. Okay? That's the first step, is own the house that you live in. Then make yourself more marketable. Stop jumping from network marketing company to network marketing company to get rich quick this, to Forex that, and everything else. We have to build true sustainable businesses in our community that is supported by our community. So for all y'all who go and you keep running to the same nail salon and running to the same beauty supply, you're going to have to take the extra effort right now to go to one that's owned by a black person. Stop giving away your money and start building your money. 10 of y'all need to get together. You can literally start a beauty supply company for $10. I mean, for $10,000. 10 of y'all get together with $1,000. Draw up the proper paperwork. Incorporate, give everybody the shares, decide who's going to be working partners and general partners. Managing partners and general partners. Decide who's going to be doing what, who's going to facilitate what. Understand how business works. Take a class to understand. Take a seminar, whatever, to understand how business works. And build a business in your community, right? If your kids see you do that, then the next one do it. And then the next one do it. The more we start taking over our economics, that is our salvation. From this whole situation, our salvation comes from that. From controlling our economics and owning the land that our economics are produced on and owning the house that we live in. That is where it comes from. That's how we change the police. That's how we change the politicians. Your vote, and y'all gonna get mad at me, your vote don't count. Your vote does not count. The Electoral College of Georgia is going to pick a Republican, period, okay? Your vote does not count. And even when you vote in that Democratic mayor, your vote ain't counting, because what have they done? What have they done? The majority of Atlanta has had black mayor after black mayor after black mayor after black mayor after black mayor. The majority of businesses in Atlanta are white owned, white owned, white owned. And then Asian, and then Indian, and then Arab. Because Indians and Asian, same place. Most of the businesses in Atlanta are owned by black people. Most of the land in Atlanta is not owned by black people. Black people still are still at the 16th percentile of income earned in Atlanta. And it's supposed to be the black Mecca. What does that tell you about your vote? What does that tell you about your vote? Your vote hasn't meant that. It doesn't mean what they say. But it's easy for you to say I voted instead of you going and saving for 5 years to put that down payment of $7,000, $8,000, $10,000 down on a house. It's easier to vote than it is to do what's necessary to fix your credit. It's easier to vote than it is to formulate a plan to support black businesses. It's easier to vote than it is to build a black business. It's easier to vote than to do those things, which is why that's what we do. That is our problem. We're not a victim, Candice. We're not a victim. We're not a victim to white people. We're not a victim to anything. And our biggest problem isn't black on black crime. Our biggest problem is the fact that we don't believe that we can change our situation ourselves. That's our biggest problem. We don't believe we can change our situation ourselves. We either looking for our religion to save us, or we're looking for life after death. But we don't believe we can change it. We don't believe that ye are gods. We don't really believe that. We don't believe that as a man thinketh, so shall he be. We don't really believe that. And that's the problem. Even though we have seen examples of it. We've seen examples of it. There's a restaurant in Atlanta called This Is It Barbecue. They've been around for 30 years. Very successful. If they did it, why can't you? You can do it. There's a restaurant called Pascal's. They did. Why can't you? Herman Homes, major construction company in Atlanta. Been around for like 20, 30, 40, no, about 40 years. They did it. Why can't you? You can do it. You can do it. Now, Michael Starworth, who actually we found out, I think, like what, our senior year that we were cousins, said, so do we not vote? You need to vote locally, sure. Presidentially, it ain't gonna matter. Congress, senator, it don't matter. They're gonna do the same stuff. But vote when your vote counts. You know when your vote counts? When you control your economics. That's when your vote counts. Because that's when the politician is gonna listen to you. They're not listening to you right now, so you can go vote, make yourself feel good, sure. But it don't matter. So in all honesty, no. I wouldn't. I don't. I'm gonna tell you right now. I vote for local people. I don't vote for the president, Congress, and senator. Because I don't vote for the lesser of two evils. I vote for that local person that I can go and sit down and talk to and actually understand and know this person. I vote for that person. And then you have those situations where nobody runs but one person. Your vote don't count. That one person gonna win. Period. So no, I honestly believe that there is actually no cause for the majority of black people to go vote until we realize that we create enough. Here's the thing: we need to, and this is part of my plans, create our own party, create a third party. Here's the thing, and what's funny is black people, they'll go against that because they'll be like, oh, well, a third party never wins. The Libertarians have been an organization for a very long time, and they've been voting, and they're voting, and they kept voting Libertarian. And what happened? I think the last presidential election, some Libertarians got voted into Senates and Congress, and there are Libertarians who are local politicians, who are city councilmen and mayors and things of that nature. Yeah, you got to have some patience on these things. But if we built a party that is, as FUBU would be, for us, by us, I guess FUVU, for us, vote us, then it will make a difference. But we got to start small. The Republican Party wasn't even around in the very beginning. I think it was like the Whigs and somebody else. There were different parties. And one may have converted to the other. I don't remember exactly. But you got to start somewhere. And sitting and waiting for the Republicans or the Democrats to be able to do something. Think about it. Let's say we voted you in, Michael. You ran for office and we voted you in. You are a black congressman coming out of Marietta, Georgia. I know you. I know you're going to be good for the country and everything. You one voice. You're one voice trying to tote a political party. You're one voice trying to say that we're going to make a change. And then they start putting that money in your pocket. Then they start pressuring you to vote the Democratic Party line. Then what you going to do? Your money tied to it now. What you going to do about it? But when your money is tied to a party that ain't got nothing to do with the Republicans or the Democrats, and you run for council member in Marietta or Cobb County, or you run for mayor of Marietta, now you can do more for your immediate community. And we have to start with our immediate communities. We're not going to affect everything nationally in the beginning. We have to affect things in our immediate community in the beginning. Charity starts at home. Voting should start at home. Representation starts at home. So if we want to make that difference, as far as your voting is concerned, then start locally and make a change. But don't join their party. Be an independent, and let's create our own party. Let's create our own party. Just like we create our own companies, we can create our own parties. So that's the only way it works. That's the only way we're going to change it. That's the only way we get off and up under this. That's the only way we come to the table equal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope for this young lady to have heard this. I doubt if it would change anything about her. I ain't going to say that. It could. Because sometimes, like, she had one experience that changed her from hating Trump to now loving Trump. So you never know what changes a person. And remember that, Candace. You had one experience that changed you from hating Trump to loving Trump, but yet this man only gets so many times that he can mess up. But I'm glad you're not God. So you don't have to worry about that. George Floyd did not die as a martyr, and nobody upholds him as one. Nobody is saying that he was a perfect human being. Kennedy, King, Malcolm, none of them were perfect. Nobody's perfect. We all have our flaws. But the man died in such a way that is indicative of what goes on in the black community. And that is the part that you don't get. And that is also the part that Drew Brees don't get. I didn't want to really bring him into this, and I'm not. But that's what white America don't get, who sit up here and they want to throw in black on black crime, or they want to throw in with all this other stuff. And I'm not, when the rioting, some people got to take that loss, but I'm not saying go out and be violent, but I'm not going to stop anybody either. So we got to change how we play this game, all right? Because they playing chess and we not even on the board. We got to play a different game. There's a Chinese game that's based on using the least amount of resources to cover as much territory as possible. And I forgot the name of the game, but we got to play that game. We got to play that game. And like I said, Mike, you saying you want to make sure I'm saying we shouldn't vote. You can go vote. It just don't matter. Until we have our own party, for our own politics, it don't matter. You're voting for a two-headed snake that's still ramming it up into you with no Vaseline. Plain and simple. So for that, no, I wouldn't. I won't. But you do what you do. But we got to remember what this fight is about. It ain't about George Floyd as a person. It's about what happened to him. It's about what happened to him, because it can happen to me. It can happen to any of you. And the only reason it happens is because of the color of your skin. And that should not happen. That should not happen. But we can't beg for respect. We have to demand the respect. We have to demand it. So y'all have a great rest of your day. Remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good vibrations and good journey.